'cause I don't ever want no one else but you. 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 No one else but you.
We did get married. The adjustment wasn't that, like, that transition is not easy. You've lived all your life as a single person. Now you've moved in with this other person. And then just trying to sort of like adapt to that, it wasn't the easiest.
Yeah.
So I think by then I was working, she wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So
like the first 5 months.
Yeah. So that transition was quite hard.
Yeah.
So in just trying to me understand my partner and her to understand me, it was sort of like just trying to make that fusion, like, for it to be sort of like work. It wasn't really easy.
I think the hardest season that we've had in our marriage, and I think we have featured on your channel before with our hardest season, is the time that we were waiting on God for a child. And it was like 5 long years in our marriage where things were really, really tough. So that's one season. I think it wasn't easy because we had like our friends, couples, and everyone else that were getting married even after us, and boom, they'll just have kids just like that. But then with us, it was hard. And it was hard, not that the kids were not even coming, but it was more of the issues, like we had to go through things like miscarriages and all, which was really a tough season for us. Yeah.
For me, there's this thing about, I think generally marriage, the way marriage is, at least like, the last 12 years and observing other marriages, I think husbands tend to enjoy marriage more than their wives. Generally speaking. Because if you had asked me the time that we were going through that phase, like, how's your marriage? I'd have been like, we're bowling. Like it's yay. But then if you checked in with my wife, she'd have probably been like, I think we need help, we need work. So
and actually research has shown that obviously there's a research that was done, and the husbands and the wives were asked about how fulfilled they were in marriage. And what was interesting is for all the husbands, they scored over 70% in terms of how fulfilled they were in marriage, and for all the wives, below 40%. So there's always this discrepancy between what fulfillment means for both the husband and the wife. And I think in most cases what causes that is lack of alignment.
So for us, from my perspective, from my end of the spectrum, it was in our 5th year of marriage. And this was a year when so I switched jobs, assumed a much bigger role, responsibility. So I was obviously inundated with quite a number of things work-wise. And then what that did is that being a semi-workaholic that I used to be, I would invest a lot of time in work. But I didn't really know how to navigate that space too well. So I would carry work home, both in terms of like actual physical work on the laptop or on the phone, or I would be thinking about work. So you'd find that in that space, it was, I think initially we kind of had an understanding that, this work is quite demanding, so I'm gonna kind of need a bit of space to like settle into this job and, apply myself and all of that. And I think that the duration was, I think, give or take about a year or so. But 1 year passed. I still, like I was still zombing around, and I would still carry work home and all of that. But I think that kind of passed. But then I got into this phase where I kind of got used to my wife giving me my space, and instead of me kind of reverting back to the place where I can now make that time for my wife and family. I think it was around about the time that we were also expecting our son.
We had, actually.
Is it? Yeah. So there was a demand that I needed to be more present, but I wasn't. So now in that space, all was kind of okay until my wife started reminding me, like, yo, you've been missing in action
For quite a while.
yeah. Emotionally, yeah, you're not present. Yes, you are here physically, but you're not here, kind of thing. So now that for me was a really difficult thing for me to fathom, because in my world, number one, in as much as I am away, it's not like I'm out there hanging out with the boys, I'm at work, I'm putting in the hours, and in my mind I'm thinking, I'm doing this for my wife, doing this for, for us,
I'm
kind of thing.
providing,
Exactly, And so that for me somewhat already justified my distance, being away and not really being like fully present, until my wife kept reminding me, like, yo, yes, you're working and all of that, but I have needs as your wife. You need to be present emotionally, affectionately, all of that. Like, there needs to be some kind of connection, because if we're not connecting, it's only a matter of time before we start drifting. And I think I didn't really kind of get it, because for me, I was like, cool, because I think also the whole love languages thing.
Yeah.
My wife is, like, quality time. Like, that's top on the list, and her version of quality time is like this.
Yeah.
Put
away the
phones
phone,
away,
let's connect,
laptops
let's
dead, disconnect the whole world. It's you and me. Okay? Like bonding. That's her version. That's not my version of quality time. My version of quality time, we're in the same room. She's doing her thing, I'm doing my thing, reading a book, as long as we're in the same space.
As long as the bodies are in the same space.
Exactly. For me, that's, like just companionship, watching a movie, listening to music, which, it's wild for her.
No, it's only wild when
your tank is low.
empty,
Yeah. When the tank is not filled up, I can't play music in the car. I'll play music in the house, because it's noisy until you fill up that tank. So I did not understand all of that.
Off the top of my head, is just losing our two babes. That was like the hardest. I think looking back, you're kind of like, hey, how did we pull through that? But that's, I think, when you can't really explain everything. I mean, we obviously were there for each other. We did everything in our physical strength that we could do. We had no idea. Obviously, when you go through something like that, there's no handbook as to how do you navigate this. And different from me as a guy going through losing babies, for her as the one who was carrying the pregnancies, very different. That's also a whole another aspect of it. How do you navigate that? But for me, I guess, to really narrow down on your question, how did we go through that? How did we manage to get through that? I think we managed because we are what's the word? I think we're good friends. I think that's the biggest thing that got us through that.
Yeah.
It's because we are really, really good friends. She's my best friend. So without that, and without obviously God, I don't think would have made it.
Yeah. I think when you're dating, yes, you see each other and then you go.
Even when you sort of like you clash, like
Yeah. You can
you
have
upset
that
with one
time
another,
away.
time apart.
Yeah. But now, like when you get married, you're in each other's space all the time, and you actually start to see. And this is something that I think a lot of us don't appreciate in the beginning. We're actually two different people who are raised by two different sets of parents, or like whatever the parental situation is, and our home of. Is it family of origin? Yeah. It has a great impact on who you are. And you sort of just assume that when you move in with your friend, they just know all the things and the Legos just fit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is an adjustment. And he was talking about how I wasn't working at the time. So it's absolute thing where like, yay, honeymoon. And then your friend has to go to work and then you're alone all day.
With your thoughts.
With your thoughts. Yeah, I think our first year was actually quite challenging. It was a lot of adjustment. Like with different things, just learning each other, learning how to communicate, how to have conflict, how to live together.
Even though it's believed that guys are not emotional, don't get affected emotionally by certain things, actually they do. And the only thing is, most of the time they try to hide it, or they try to keep it to themselves and not to maybe show it to the wife, especially because they will feel like maybe if I show her that I'm also feeling bad, then she will be worse. Like she'll feel worse. So most of the time they hide it. But I know there are certain times, most of the time he would be strong emotionally, but there are certain times that he would be vulnerable, and sometimes would cry together and pray together. Even as we prayed, would also cry, but not that that vulnerability would now be everywhere. No, it's not like that. And maybe that's what helped us to be together, because most of the time we did not talk about it with everybody else, but we would talk about it together. And maybe that's what helped us also, because everyone was not handling their own pain and emotion on their own, but we would actually talk about it when we're together. So we would talk about it, would talk about how we are feeling, or even if we went outside, then someone said something that hurt, we would maybe come back and say, hey, today someone said this and I really felt bad about it, if concerning the situation, and we would talk about it. Maybe we won't talk about it with that particular person who said what they said, because maybe they didn't realize that what they said was hurtful. So we would come back and talk about it. And I think there was no time that we had a divide between ourselves because of that issue. I think we always stood by each other, and we always supported each other as best as we could.
Thank God that she labored to like kind of make me understand. I would actually get upset, At some point I was like, do you want me to quit my job?
I'm ready to quit. I'm like, that's
I can do that, right? I can quit my job and just be at home. So we can just hang out, watch each other. But then, she made me understand, say, look, no, it's not about quitting your job. It's not about, matter of fact, you can have all the time that you want doing your thing and whatnot. What I want is time for us to at least be able to bond, to connect. And it took her to kind of like break it down in bite-sized pieces. Yeah, of course. Like there was a time that she kind of gave up and just went to the mountains. Well, not physically, but went into the realms and prayed and all of that until the Holy Ghost nudged me, and and then we started having a candid conversation. So she broke it down to me to like explain what she actually meant practically by connecting, bonding, me being present. Then it kind of started registering. and eventually I think that I got it.
I'll pick on the most recent, and that would be navigating my diagnosis with depression and anxiety. I think I would say that was a hard time, just because, again, there's no handbook of how do you go through that with your spouse. But then also for me, my symptoms dragged on for a really long period of time, and so it impacted our relationship greatly, to different degrees at different times. Yeah. And just trying to have honest conversations, give each other grace, learn through the mistakes, being honest with each other. But again, it boils down to the friendship that you have, and you know that no matter what I tell this person, I know that they love me, and that won't change just because of what I'm feeling right now or how I feel about this situation. So for me, that was really helpful. Yeah.
Like, this is a point where a husband and a wife begin to disconnect. You know, it sounds so simple, but then if the husband is not meeting the emotional needs of a woman, what happens is two things. If a woman is not grounded in the word, she'll start to entertain other men, right? If she's grounded in the word, because the husband has left this void, you know, I'm a woman of God, I'm red rose, you know, I can't cheat on my husband, I know there's emotional cheating and stuff like that. What they do is they start to detach, and that's not God's plan. Before they know it, they wake up one day and then they just realize that they don't feel anything. Yeah, they're strangers. Or they'll be in the same house, but
just housemates.
Great. Just housemates. You know, and then once you disconnect that bond, then it means you leave, you know, a loophole for the devil to come and do whatever he wants to do. Because as long as the wife is not fulfilled in marriage, she has the potential to open the door for the devil. You know, that's why obviously we can read scripture. I'm not supporting, you know, any woman in the Bible, but you can read what happened to Eve. It was Eve that heard the devil. Are you getting what I'm saying? So if the emotional needs, it sounds simple, and I think this is one of the things that husbands don't get. You know, but I provide for you. What more do you need? When the wife has a child, I had a child, you're like, yeah, but I'm here. Do you want me to be looking at the child? Yes, I want you to be staring at the child. If it's going to make me happy, then you should do it. But you're like, I can't just be staring at the child. You know,
boring.
It's boring, but this woman has been with the child the whole day, and then you come and, you know, so anyway, so for me also it was difficult, because I think the first 5 years, like, we're best friends. Obviously we didn't have a child in the first 5 years, so we're always together, we do things together, blah 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 blah. And then he had this job, which was like a job but also ministry, which obviously I was proud of, because it was going to save God, but obviously it was going to bring income and stuff like that. We're having a child for the first time after being together for a while. I mean, the two of us for a while. And then even for me, I didn't realize how that was going to impact me. But you can imagine, you spend time together, you connect and everything, and then your best friend starts to detach. You know, first of all, obviously we knew that the role was going to be demanding. So I was like, okay, I know it's going to be demanding. This is the season. I'm going to give you a year. But after a year, please, you need to fill my love bank. You need to fill my emotional tank, because by then it will be drained. So you need to do something. So I gave him a year. During that year, I'm like, God help me, because you can't stay in a year without connecting. I was like, God help me, because one of the things that we are clear about with each other is that we are flesh and blood. We both have eyes, physical eyes. So it's not just because we love each other, we love God. Doesn't mean that we don't see people out there.
Right.
I hear I'm saying, like, anyone can fall anytime. So anyway, and it's something that we always talk about. So that time he starts to detach. He prioritizes work more than me. You know, I start to see, I speak to him, he can't get me. And I think that's, in most cases, that's what a lot of marriages go through, because you can't get each other. You can't, because in his word I'm providing. In your word, yes, I appreciate you're providing, but I just need some time. And if I need some time, I need undivided attention. Not at home, you are on the laptop, and then by then you are tired. He used to make for me breakfast all the time, but it was like he said, the zombie, like, good morning, baby, breakfast, good morning. And for us women, we know if you're not connecting. Like, we know, like, yes, you are here, but anyways. But for me, it was such a hard moment, but thank God that I love Jesus. I would have obviously resorted to doing something crazy. But then I went to God because I started to talk to him. He couldn't get me at all, and I was almost giving up. But I said I'll not, give up. So that's how I went and prayed to God. I just said, God, look, like your dude is starving me emotionally. This guy is busy, and so when I understand he's doing this, I'm proud of him, but I need attention because I don't want to fall. I meet guys all the time and stuff like that. And it was at that point when I took my burden as a wife to God that God spoke to him and was able to hear me. And I think this is quite important for the wives to understand that sometimes the husbands will not just get you because they're not in our
in our
world.
marriage. That season helped us draw closer to God as a couple, because in everything that happened, we would run back to God as a couple, and like she said, we learned how to pray together as a couple. Like when you get married, it's like so exciting. Like, the first couple of months, the first 6 months and all, you're so excited and you're not worried about anything. But then the minute we now realize that, there seems to be this challenge that is before us, we decided to stick closer to each other. And thanks to family as well, we had support from family in terms, like, nobody pointed any fingers. They were just praying for us as well. And so that season, I think, drew us closer together, such that when other challenges along the way came about, we would see how we handled the first season, and it has helped us handle any other season that has come up. Yeah.
I think for me, there was never another option. Like, this is the person that I've chosen to spend the rest of my life with. So the problems were never like, it's over. that never really like came to mind. It was just like, okay, this is another thing that we need to work through. This is another thing that we need to process through. I think it just, especially in that first year, it was just not something that you considered as an option. It was not on the table.
That's easy. He's
my person.
when you have a best friend, there's just a connection that whatever happens, whatever you go through, even if you argue or whatever, you still go back to each other because
and we're so many things to each other. We're business partners, we are parents together, we're husband and wife, we're lovers, but we are friends also. And so when there's stuff going on in all these other areas, what keeps us together is that we're friends. Because sometimes as business partners we do butt heads and we are like, ugh, and sometimes as parents you feel like maybe your friend is not helping as much as you want, or you're not seeing eye to eye, or the kids are just getting in the way of your connection. And then sometimes your sex life isn't great, but it comes down to, this is my friend. Yeah.
So for me, I think throughout the marriage, I think what helps is the fact that I know where I got him from. Because I don't know about you who's watching, but like, there'll be moments in marriage that the devil will ask you, are you sure? So that's why it's easy to just throw in the towel, because when you find yourself at a point where you're like, oh my goodness, wait a minute, did I actually hear Gabi GP or Gabi GB? You know what I'm saying? Wow, like, did I actually hear rap? When you start to question yourself, like Eve, like the serpent questioning Eve, did God say? Then there's a problem. So for me, just realizing and knowing, being confident about where I got him from and what I went through, that's number one. Like, I'm confident that I got him from God. Number two, just the fact that my husband and I like to invest so much in accountability. You know, we have people that we look up to, we invest in godly knowledge, you know, and we try as much as possible to make it work, you know. So even when we are facing a challenge, and I must, even when we are facing a challenge, we know that, you know, we need to make it work. You know, we can't think divorce, we can't think anything else. We know that whatever we are faced with, God has given us the grace and the ability to resolve it. Most couples actually are not accountable. If they are, they don't even know what accountability is. So in case you're watching, the question is, do you have an older couple that you can run to that can correct you and say, Rose, the way you are talking to your husband, are you hear what I'm saying? Oh, you, me, myself, and I, you know, it's just the two of us. So it's those things that help us to stick together even when we face so many challenges.
I guess maybe even looking at it from this point, I would say with time, I personally, I'm sure I've been with her, there's been the aspect of giving yourself time for growth.
Yeah.
Growth really needed to happen. Even in the moment where like you are upset with each other, it doesn't mean that that's the end of the world. But look at it from the aspect of, okay, how do we grow from this? So that maybe if there was, maybe we didn't treat each other better here in terms of what we say, there's the aspect of growth that still has to happen. Or be like, okay, maybe we shouldn't do that. But you have to give yourself just an opportunity to grow. Like you have to sort of like give yourself enough grace to grow, because what we're creating is we're two different individuals and we're trying to create this thing. It's sort of like it's a mesh actually that we're creating. So we're creating this hybrid. So the hybrid that we create should be a balance of my personality, her personality. So my personality has all these traits of how I was raised, how I think, my worldview. Same goes for her. So it's sort of like we are creating this fusion. And the good part is we've got God on our side. So we don't look at it as, we've erred. That means it's the end of the world. Like, let's just get rid of it now because we've messed up. But it should be a thing where be like, okay, look, just the way God treats us. If I do make a mistake, I go back to my Father and be like, oh, God, please help me get out of this. Please help me so that I can grow from this. And then you find that as you are going, you overgrow certain things, you stop doing certain things and things like that. So I think it's the same thing when it comes to marriage and how we live life with our partners.
Yeah, and as you said, like having God on our side is, for us, it wasn't just like we're married and there are other options. We really, even to this day, we really value the idea of covenant. And that's something that's really important to us because of our faith. So it was never an option, like not continuing or just like throwing everything out the window. One or another, when you're okay, we can work through whatever it is because of the fact that we've literally, like, in the sight of God, said that we are going to be together until death. Yeah.
Even from the very word go itself, we would say, like, even when we've had a difference, and one of the very, very first differences that we had, and then when she was trying to communicate something, she said, look, we are two different people from two different backgrounds, brought up too differently, but learning to live with one another. So we need to learn how to live with one another with our differences. That to me has like always been there. And I've even used it even in counseling others. Because so I think just the way we've been handling things together is what has made me say, hey, this is the right person. And even after our breakthrough, when we had the kids and things like that, just seeing the person continuing being who she is, But I think the other thing is that she loves the Lord. Yeah. And I call her my superwoman because when she's doing things, she does like 1,000 things at once. And with me, I want to do one thing at a time. I want to do this and I'll do that. And with her, she does like everything at once and she gets it done. And I'm like, God, this is a superwoman. How does she do that? You know? So I think, yeah, she's been a very good person. Yeah, a good partner, good wife.
It's important for us as a couple to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that marriage is a God idea, not necessarily a good idea. So because God is the author of this thing called marriage, all the answers lie with him.
Yeah.
And it's important that we adhere to biblical precepts and principles that govern the marriage. And one of them is that regardless of whatever differences that we may have, we are not each other's enemy. The enemy is not my spouse, and vice versa. The enemy is out there. So even through the difficult time, what we are envisioning is a situation where we are approaching the issue as a team. So we are on the same side. We may not see eye to eye in the moment, but we are on the same side. And so we are facing the situation head on and trying our level best to ensure that we are applying what needs to be applied to address it. And the code of practice is that it's open and honest communication for us, regardless of how I'm feeling, and regardless of how my partner is going to take something. At the end of the day, because the code is open and honest communication, because we don't want to keep anything from each other. So that always helps us to bring things to light in the time that we are facing. And one of the things that my wife mentioned, the fact that we know that it is God that brought this person in my life. So if anything is to be doubted, it will not be, did I make the right decision? Because I know that I made the right decision. She might be tripping right now, but I know that I made the right decision. So, and then lastly, divorce, separation, and all of that is not in our vocab. It doesn't exist in our world. It's not an option. It will never be. And I think that's one of the things that's quite disheartening about our generation, is that it's become so easy to think of a way out,
Divorced
to think
and
about
happy.
a break. Exactly.
Divorced and fulfilled.
I mean, no shade to anyone that has been through divorce, because obviously it's real. But if you are married, regardless of what you're going through, it should be the very last resort. And so that helps us in whatever situation that we're dealing with to think, we need to make it work. We need to find a way to make it work.
I think there has never been a point in time when I actually felt like calling it quits. Yeah. Even in the toughest of situations, the toughest of arguments, disagreements, and things like that, I've never thought of doing life without her, because I felt, I feel she still makes me a better person, like the way she compliments me. Yeah, so the thought has never crossed my mind. Yeah.
Even though I could tell from the beginning that he actually loves God, it's very important for a man to love God, because first of all, it will keep them away from other vices that would cause them to become unpleasant people. So because of that, I know he's a pleasant person to be with, and he does not intentionally maybe would want to harm me or do something bad to me. And it's been like that because I know that he doesn't just fear me or maybe my relatives, they'll come and do what, but he just fears God, that's all, and he does the right thing. And I've seen that even though we have moved through different stages and different seasons of his life, and he's still stuck on his loving God and getting to know God more. And I feel like I made the right decision, even though we have had bad situations and things like that. But like he said, okay, no, I don't know if he said that, but like you said, many people quits in our generation, and in these generations, there are a lot of people that give up on marriage very quickly because maybe they thought marriage doesn't have challenges, or maybe because the person that they thought they were getting married to is not who they are. Maybe they were pretending or something, or maybe they discovered other things that you would never know until you live with someone. But the thing is, at the back of your mind when you're getting married, if you have it in mind that you can jump out of the boat, and I know sometimes if you look at it critically, you might think that if you tell yourself, I'm not going into this thinking about separating someday, then maybe you are putting yourself in your prison. If something bad happens to you, it's okay for you to leave and things like that. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about being intentionally thinking about, like, having a plan B already when you're going in, thinking, okay, if anything happens, I'll just go. Like, I think that plants bad seeds in your marriage.
I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. And really, like, for us, we've been through like the different seasons financially, and we've had a whole lot. Like seasons where there was there was so much fruit, and seasons where it was just like it's wild. But through each season, the constant has been God has been an able provider.